In this morning by telling you a story of several mothers who got together one day and they were talking about the most trying and the most difficult time that there was in parenting. And one mother said that the most difficult time in parenting is just after the baby is born. She says you're tired, the lack of sleep, waking up in the middle of the night to feed the baby and then change the diaper. She says that's the most difficult time in parenting. And then a mother said, no. It's the terrible twos. Every other word that comes out of their mouth is no. And the toys are all over the house and it's just maddening. A third mother said, no. Wait until your child starts school. They go to school and they meet friends and soon their friends are always at your home making a mess. She says, that's the worst time in parenting. And another mother says, no, you don't understand. The worst time is when your child becomes a teenager. It's just like having a strange person in the house. That is the worst time. Well, there was only one grandmother in the group, and she says, no, you don't really understand. She says, wait until your child turns 50. She says, that's the worst time in parenting. They don't write, they don't visit, they don't call. She says, that is the worst time in being a parent. Well, you see, no matter how old you are, mothers and parents never really feel as they get away from the responsibility of parenting. And one of the words of advice that many people give to new parents is that they are told to enjoy this time now because they say children grow up so quickly. And that's so true. Our children grow up right before our noses, and before we know it, they're on their own. And I know that many of you have children who have children of their own. And so it reminded me of another story that I heard years ago. It's a story by Irma Bombeck, who wrote a poem that was called When Children Grow Up. And it goes like this. One of these days you'll shout, why don't you kids grow up and act your age? And they will. Or you guys get outside and find something to do and don't slam the door. And they will. You'll straighten up the bedrooms, spread tucked and smooth, toys displayed on the shelves, hangers in the closet, animals cage, and you'll say, now, I want it to stay like this. And it will. You'll prepare a perfect dinner with a salad that hasn't been picked to death and a cake that no longer has fingerprints in the icing. And you'll say, that is a meal for company. And you'll end up eating that meal alone. You'll say, I want complete privacy while I'm on the phone. No dancing around, no pantomimes, no demolition crew. Silence, do you hear? And you'll have it. There will be no more plastic tablecloths stained with spaghetti, no more bedspreads to protect from wet bottoms, no more gates to stumble over at the top of the stairway, no more anxious nights under a vaporizer, no more sand in the sheets, no more Winnie the Pooh or toy soldiers in the bathroom, no more knotted shoe strings, tight boots or rubber bands for ponytails. And imagine lipstick with a point on it. And no babysitter on New Year's Eve. Washing only once a week. No PTA meetings, no carpools, no blaring radios, no more washing your hair at 11 o'clock at night. Having your own roll of Scotch tape. No more sloppy oatmeal kisses. No giggles in the dark. No knees to heel. No more responsibility. Only a voice crying, why don't you grow up? And the silence echoing back, I did. So it's true. Our children grow up so quickly. And you know, that's part of the joy and the sadness of parenting. But no one experiences those things like mothers do. And so as we gather here for Mother's Day, no one can underestimate the importance of a role that a mother plays in the life of rearing children. There's no other word that brings more emotion and prompts more memories than the word mother. And as I used that word this morning, I also am reminded of my own mother. And it was 18 years ago that she passed away. And someone once asked me who it was that I admired the most. And I told them that I admired my mother. And I told that person I love and respect my mother because my father died when I was 16. And my mother worked hard to help support our family. She worked days doing domestic housework, and in the evening she catered parties. She sacrificed a lot and saw that my two older brothers and my older sister, that we all made it through college. And she lived her life for her children. And she never bought anything for herself, but she always was sacrificing for us. And she worked all the way up until just a couple months shy of her 86th birthday when she was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and she passed away a few months later. And so, the love of a parent, and I think especially that of a mother, it's really the closest thing that we will find in this life to the love of God. It's a love that is rich and deep and almost impossible to describe. We all come into this world as little bitty babies who can't walk, can't talk. We can cry and we could scream, okay, but we can't take care of ourselves. We are so helpless that if someone didn't hold us and keep us warm and feed us, we wouldn't be able to survive. And there's probably no more helpless creature born on earth than a baby. And so as a child, as babies and infants, we are totally dependent upon our parents, especially our mothers, that we literally could not live without them. And it's because of their love and care that we honor our mothers this day. It's because of this gift to us, the gift of our mothers, that God gives us the fifth commandment. Now, the fifth commandment is found in Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. But as we've been going through this study on the book of Ephesians, we also find that in Ephesians 6, verse 2, it says the same thing. It says, honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. So God gave Moses the 10 commandments on the top of Mount Sinai. And the first 4 commandments, you may remember, are commandments that are Godward focused. They speak to us of our vertical relationship with God. They speak to us that we shall have no other gods before Jehovah God, that we shall not make any idols or bow down and worship them, that we are not to take the name of the Lord in vain, and that we should remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. And then the 5th through the 10th commandments, they focus on our horizontal relationships with others, our parents, our neighbors, and our community. And so Jesus summarized all of these 10 commandments in Matthew chapter 2, verses 37 to 40 by saying, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the commandments hang on these 2 commandments. And so Jesus summarized all the commandments by the greatest commandments. So in giving the 5th commandment, God is giving one of the most practical prescriptions on how to have a healthy family. And that's so important in our day and age, because I've said this many times before. I believe that we are a nation and a people who are moving farther and farther away from what the Bible says, how the Bible calls us to live. We are moving farther and farther away from biblical authority. And so I've also said that we are in a war. And it's a battle against an invisible enemy who is called Satan. And Satan is trying to do everything that he can to destroy the home, to destroy marriages, to destroy families. And it's really a battle for the hearts and souls of the next generation who will grow up in a world that is even farther and farther away from God. Yesterday, I looked at some statistics. I went to a website that was called The State of America's Children in 2021. The State of America's Children in 2021. And this is what I found. It stated that each day in America, 2 mothers die from complications of childbirth. 5 children are killed by abuse or neglect. 8 children or teens die by suicide. 9 children or teens are killed with a gun. 20 children or teens die from accidents. 46 children or teens are injured with a gun. 59 babies die before their first birthday. 121 children are arrested for violent crimes. 223 children are arrested for drug crimes. 514 public school students are corporally punished. 678 babies are born without health insurance. 827 babies are born into extreme poverty. 860 babies are born with low birth rate. 1,541 babies are born into poverty. 1,785 children are confirmed as abused or neglected. 1,909 children are arrested. And 2,906 high school students drop out. 14,206 public school students are suspended. And you know, all those statistics, they represent just one day in the life of an American family. And so if we're to have healthy family lives, we need to be praying for our nation. We need to be praying for families. We need to be praying for the young children, no matter where they are located across our nation and even around the globe. That's something that we should be doing regularly, but so often we neglect to pray for our families as part of our daily prayer time. Another thing that we need, though, is we need the wisdom of God, who really designed the family in the first place. The God who created the family knows how the family should be sustained. And so here in the 5th commandment, God commands us to honor our fathers and mothers. The scripture also says, give honor to whom honor is due. To honor someone is to acknowledge that person's position. God doesn't say that we are to honor our parents because they are perfect parents or because they never make mistakes, but we are to honor them because God has ordained the position of parenting. So have you ever been into a courtroom and you hear the attorney address the judge as Your Honor? Well, that judge may not be perfect. That judge may make mistakes. That judge may or may not have great character. But the judge is given honor because of their position. And God has ordained their authority. In the same way, we are to give our parents respect and honor them because God has given to them that position of authority in our lives. And so how we treat our parents not only impacts them, because every mother and father desires their children to treat them with love and respect. But it also impacts us because according to this commandment, there is a blessing based upon our treatment of our parents. God said through Moses, so that you may live long in the land your God is giving you. So we see in the fifth commandment both a principle and a promise. The principle is that we are to give honor to our parents. And the promise is that you may live long. So there's a promise of the longevity of life to those who obey God by honoring their parents. In other words, if you honor and obey your parents, God promises that conflict in the home will be less, and life will be much more peaceful and joyous. Generally, it will result in a longer and a healthier life. So the question is, how can we honor those who first loved us? And the first point that I want to make is that we honor our parents by obeying and respecting them. The passage of scripture that Sherry read a moment ago from Ephesians chapter 6 verse 1 says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right." This is the right thing to do because God has placed our parents in a position of protection and authority over us. Obeying our parents means that we do what they ask us to do, and to do it with the right attitude, willingly, pleasantly, and immediately. And since young children, are still dependent upon their parents for food, clothing, shelter, for insurance, for many of these things, they have the God-given responsibility. Parents have the God-given responsibility to do their best to raise and to nurture their children. But you can be outwardly obedient and still rebellious in the heart. You can outwardly obey your parents and still show a lack of respect for them, maybe by harboring a rebellious attitude towards them. And so we need to recognize that obedience is a decision that we make daily. It begins as we decide that we are going to love our parents, respect them, obey them, and maintain a right attitude towards them. And we give our parents that honor and respect because that is what God has called us to do. Secondly, we honor our parents by accepting and appreciating them. Let me tell you another story. Once there were 3 mothers who were bragging about their grown-up sons. And the first woman says, "You should have seen what my boy did for my birthday. He threw a big party at a fancy restaurant. He hired a big band to come and play." And the second lady said, "That's nice, but listen to what my son did. Last winter, he gave me an all-expense-paid cruise to the Greek islands, and all of it was first class." She said, "I had the best time of my life." And the third lady says, "That's nothing." She said, "For the last 3 years, my son has been paying for a psychiatrist at $250 an hour 2 times a week. And the whole time he talks about nothing but me." Well, parents are not perfect. Parents try their best, but we're not perfect. And so acceptance doesn't mean pretending that they're perfect. It doesn't mean ignoring their mistakes. But acceptance means realizing that God has used our earthly parents to bring us into the world. Acceptance means that we listen to what they have to say. Proverbs 23:22 says, "Listen to your parents who gave you your life, and do not despise your mother when she is old." Acceptance also includes forgiveness, because oftentimes in life we hurt those that we love the most, sometimes intentionally and sometimes unintentionally. But If we live our lives together for any length of time, we are going to hurt one another, even those relationships within the family. And so families must be built on forgiveness, especially during those times when we hurt one another. But not only that, we can also appreciate our parents' efforts, because parenting is very challenging. It takes time. It takes energy. And also, when we think about our parents, it takes a lot of sacrificing. As I mentioned, my mother, she sacrificed so much for my brothers and my sister in order that we could go to college, and she was always giving up things so that we might have a better life. And so, when was the last time, if your parents are still alive, that you thank them for their time, their efforts, and their sacrifices that they gave to you? And then third, we honor our parents by affirming them and not abandoning them. For many parents, the older they get, the less respect they get. They're no longer wanted in the workplace for their wisdom and skill. Their grown children are busy with their own families. And many seniors live lonely lives. And older parents have a great need to feel and to know that they made a contribution in the life of their children. And so parents need that affirmation. And how do we do that? We affirm our parents by staying in touch with them. Every time you write a letter, a card, make a call, or tell them the details of what is going on in your life, you're obeying this command to honor your father and mother. It's interesting that when Jesus Christ was on the cross, suffering and dying for the sins of the whole world, one of the things that Jesus did was that he didn't forget who was to care for his mother after he was gone. And so, hanging on the cross, dying in pain, one of the last things that Jesus said, recorded in John chapter 19, verses 26 to 27, says, "When Jesus saw his mother there, and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to his mother, 'Dear woman, here is your son,' and to the disciple, 'Here is your mother.'" And from that time on, the disciple John took Mary into his home. While Jesus was dying for the sins of the world, he didn't forget to provide for the needs and for the care of his mother. So, seeing that our parents have invested so much in our lives, why would we not want to honor them? There was obviously a reason why God wrote the fifth commandment. He gave this commandment because sometimes there's that propensity for us to dishonor our parents, or if not to dishonor, to fail to honor and to recognize them. There's a tendency to take our parents for granted and all that they have done for us. There is a tendency at times to be uncaring, unthoughtful, indifferent, disrespectful, and unfeeling. But it's because of a mother's love. Because next to God's love, there is no greater love. And because of what the scriptures command us to do, this day, above any other days, although it should be true with each and every day of our lives, let us seek to honor our mothers. Let's just take a moment to bow in a moment of silent prayer. And if your mothers are still living, lift them up in prayer to the Lord and ask God to watch over them, to bless them, to protect them, to provide for them, to keep them strong and healthy. And whatever needs that they might have, pray that the Lord would meet them there. And if your mother has passed away, give thanks to God for their life, for what they have meant to you, and for how they have been a special blessing in your life. Let's take a moment now to remember our mothers before the Lord.